I'm the Overpickard, and welcome to beautiful Limousin, France. It is beautiful today, here in Limousin, France, but it is beautiful for mid-December, which means it's still freezing and it's raining a little bit, and it's too dark to film inside, but it's too cold to film outside. So I've come into the polytunnel, and that explains the wall of hay, because it's the best place to store it. It's nice and warm and dry, and that's why I'm in here. So today I'm going to do an answering your comments and questions video because I enjoy doing them, and it's the festive season, and I thought, what can I do to kind of give to you guys, and what can I do to interact with you guys? So I'm doing an answering your comments and questions video, and these are some of my favourite videos to film. I love some of the weird and wonderful stuff you guys ask me, and I'm drinking Earl Grey because we've run out of proper tea. Help send tea. Yeah, so desperate times call for desperate measures. So the first question is, I'm going in reverse order. The first people to ask me questions are the first people to get them answered. So Paolo Non-Vitek Akorba something, your Twitter name is too long to read. It just goes to ... says, what's probably the oldest tool you have, and sorry, what's probably the oldest car tool you have? And is there an interesting story behind it? The oldest car tool I have, the oldest car tool I've got is probably my dad. No, no, the oldest car tool I've got is probably I've got a Michelin or Michelin tire lever, metal tire lever for changing car tires, and it's pre-war. It's massive. And that's, you know, probably late 20s, early 30s, something like that. And I didn't actually buy it. It came with a thing. I bought a big wood work table thing, and it was in the drawer of the work table. So there we go. And it's really cool, and it's old, and I've posted pictures online of it before. The other one is the pair of like weird side cut pliers that I used in my tractor headlights on Jolene video, when I put tractor headlights on my 2CV. Those are super old as well, and I have no idea where they came from. So they were given to me by my friend Tony. Next question. Sebastian Maroud says, why not a video about the specific tools you can't repair a 2CV without? There is nothing about it, I think, on the web. I may just do that. Thank you, Sebastian. Sebastian's actually a friend of the channel. It's something I've thought of before. I don't have a bunch of specific tools. I think I've said this in a previous video. I make a lot of my own tools. But this tea's making me cough. Oh great, it's not good for me. I need proper tea. So yeah, it's something I haven't thought of, and I may just do that in the future. Thank you, Sebastian. Adam MacLeod, just kidding, MacLeod. He told me off after the last video. He sent me an email. He's like, my name's MacLeod, not MacLeod. I don't know, it looks like MacLeod. So Adam MacLeod says, dearest Oliver, can you finally give in to the countless requests by Adam to drive your deux chevaux over a ploughed field with a basket of eggs? You could perhaps tie that into a video about the revolutionary suspension. I have an idea for it, but it's too muddy to do it now. So thank you, Adam. And my friend Gil also added in, you know, that he wants me to do it as well. It may happen sometime in the future. I may save that video for a milestone celebration video, because if I'm going to break my car, I might as well do it. I might as well do it on a milestone. No, I have driven Jolene off-road. She's very good off-road. I have put an off-road video on Instagram once, a little short one. But I haven't driven across a ploughed field in a yet. I have driven across a field, but not a ploughed field. So yeah, that may happen at some point, but I'll save that for a milestone video. Enrique Consejo says, "Hola Enrique. Enrique says, "Hola, ¿qué tal, Oliver? ¿Cómo estás?" Hello, Oliver. How are you? I'm very well, thank you, Enrique. Enrique wants to know where to get the roof clips that fit on the back of 2CV roofs. I'll send you a link, Enrique. Next question. Dino Stepankic? That's a tough one. Says, question 1. Why 2CV and not some other... why 2CV and not some other new, faster car? Okay, so I like cars of all eras. I like pre-war cars. I don't have anything to do with veteran cars. I never have. I don't really have any relationship with them. But I really love pre-war cars. I love post-war cars. I love 60s cars, 70s cars, 80s cars, 90s cars, and I even love some new cars. But why a 2CV? If I was in Japan, and I lived in Japan, I'd probably buy a Japanese car, because then I can get bits. If I lived in England, I'd drive an English car, an old English car, because then I can get bits. And basically, if you live in France, the best car to have is a French car, because then you can get all French car parts, because French people tend to buy French cars. And so, if you live in a country, one of the best things you can do is buy a car from that country, because second-hand parts and stuff are much easier to come by, and you are more likely to have kind of a cult following for that car. Whereas if you live in Spain and own a Trabant, the Spanish Trabant community is quite small, and so you're going to struggle to get bits. And the 2CV is one of the greatest cars ever made. That's just a fact. And they are absolutely superb. So I looked into French cars of all sorts, and I've always loved 2CVs. Never had anything to do with them growing up, but I've always liked them. And then I came across a documentary. I think I've talked about this before. I came across a documentary about the Tuareg Trail, which is a 2CV rally that went across Africa. And I started reading more about them, and as I learned a bit more French, I started reading about them in French. And I think they're just superb. I think they're a superb engineering achievement. And I prefer the older cars because I'm not a fan of plastic and stuff. And the most usable of the older cars is Jolene, because a 1963, it has the bigger engine. It has the 18 horsepower engine, so you can go on motorways and stuff quite easily, but it also has the suicide doors. 63, 64 is the last 2 years of the suicide doors. So it's the best of the old and the best of the new. And I like cars like that, which incidentally makes it quite hard to get parts for, ironically. But yeah, that's why a 2CV, really. I'm in France, and it's, an old lady. I was actually kind of temporarily broken down once in Jolene on my way back from a big trip. And an old lady stopped by and she started talking to me about the fact that her first car was a 2CV and that she'd owned 3 2CVs. And this lady was about 90. And she says to me, "Always remember, you are driving a French national monument. Take care of it." So yeah. 2CVs are very much a French national monument. They're very much a piece of French history. And they are very close to the French people's hearts. And so it's nice as well for me to drive around in something that so many people love. Especially being a stranger. When you're in a strange country, it's very nice to have something that can help you make friends, meet new people. And through Jolene, because of Jolene, I've met some of the nicest people that I've ever met in my entire life. So there are faster cars that I like. Everything's faster than Jolene, pretty much. But all modern cars anyway are faster than Jolene. But she's quick enough. She does the job. Just about. And I wouldn't sell for the world. I wasn't prepared for how good of a car she is to drive. I just thought she was quirky, and she's got a hatchback, so she's really utilitarian. If you follow me on Instagram and stuff, you'll see. The other day I put 3 giant water butts in the back of Jolene, and I've put bags of cement and stuff in there, and I really use her. She's my everyday car. So she's a 56-year-old car that I can buy all the parts for. Which my last car was a Daihatsu 4-wheel drive, and Daihatsu don't sell parts anymore in Europe, and that's a problem. So I couldn't get anything for my last car, even though it was 1992, and I couldn't get a single part for my last car, and it drove me absolutely crazy because I really liked that 4-wheel drive. It was brilliant, but I got to a point where it was just became unusable, and I kept fixing it up and fixing it up and fixing it up. But there's only so much you can do without getting small rubber parts and bits that you need for that particular vehicle. And for a 2CV, that's all available here in France. So it makes sense to have her. She's opened me up to some of the nicest people I've ever met, some of whom have commented in these questions, and she's superb, absolutely fantastic. But that's why Jolene, and not a newer, faster car. There are many newer, faster cars, but there are fewer, more rebuildable cars. And I can do every job myself. I don't need a computer. I don't need to rely on anyone else to work on her. She's superb. So yeah, that's why a 2CV really. And that's why a 63, 64 2CV as well. A newer one would have been faster, but not quite as cool looking. Okay, next question. Dino says, question 2, why France? Why France? I spent a lot of time here as a kid. And I've always loved rural France. I've always loved how warm people are. I've always loved how friendly and welcoming people are. I love the countryside. I'm definitely a country boy. I'm not a city boy. And I could actually see myself living here long term. I could see myself living here for a long, long time, which is something I never could do in Spain. I never felt at home in Spain. So of all the places I've been, kind of rural France just was right for me, and is right for me, and the people here are lovely and welcoming, and it's such a nice place to live. That doesn't mean I don't want to travel. Doesn't mean I don't know. I want to see a lot more of the world, obviously, but I really do like my home here in France. Linus04 Insta says, what's your thoughts on electrified old cars? Okay, I did a video about electric cars. I think it's called Let's Talk About Electric Cars. And I give my thoughts on Tesla and all that stuff. And in that video, I outline what I would do if I had an old car. Okay, so I'm alright with electric conversions. I think it's a good thing. But one of the best things about old cars, classic cars, is the fact that they are pretty much endlessly rebuildable because of their simplicity. That's why people like them for electric drivetrain conversions, because they are simple. My problem with that is that an electric drivetrain is a disposable item. The electronics have a lifetime, because eventually all the solder in the electronics is going to oxidize and start going wrong, and it's all going to start breaking down, and you're going to have problems with the electronics. Electronics can't last forever. It's just not with the technology we have at the moment. And battery packs have a lifespan as well. And so if you put an electric drivetrain in a classic car, you have to understand that the drivetrain has a much shorter lifespan than the car. The car, be it, take a VW Beetle, for example. An electric drivetrain vastly improves a Beetle, but that drivetrain will last maybe 15 years, whereas that Beetle can do another 50 years. So you have to make sure that the electric conversion that you do can be undone, and that you can go back to an original Beetle engine. Hopefully you keep the original engine and gearbox kind of on a pallet, and you can have it rebuilt and put in your car when the electric one dies. Or you can go for a more modern and better electric drivetrain. It's okay, but it is a disposable thing rather than a rebuildable thing. So it's better than buying a whole electric car, because obviously you're using something that exists. So you're not building a whole car, you're just building a drivetrain and putting that in. That's a lot better for the environment, and it's a lot less plasticky and cool. But I have a bit of an issue with that, with the fact that the drivetrain does have a lifespan. But if you're okay with that, that's fine. If I was going to build an electric classic car, so a classic car with an electric drivetrain swap, I would build a Trabant Estate. Trabant Estates look really cool with kind of funky suspension mods and nice wheels. They can look awesome. Trabants can't be recycled, they cannot be broken down, and they have horrible two-stroke engines as standard. So the original engine and gearbox is pretty much garbage. I might upset Trabant people by saying that, but it's not good. And it would be greatly improved by a really good electric motor. They're also quite lightweight, and they're a big car, so you can, it's an estate car, so you can put quite a lot of batteries in it. And of course they don't rust or anything like that. So yeah, my choice for an electric classic car would be a Trabant Estate. I'm not a huge Trabant guy. I don't know a hell of a lot about them, but I like the idea of that. I like the idea of a car that will never rust, that is now powered by an electric motor in place of a horribly polluting two-stroke. You're taking a very polluting car and making it fantastic for the environment, not terrible for the environment. And it's better because obviously, you can't recycle it, like I say. Okay, next question. Midnight Dory, who's Midnight Drifter on Twitter as well, says, okay, you wake up one morning and find that Jolene has been the victim of another heist by those German jewel thieves, who are working on behalf of an anonymous client who has excellent taste. Okay. The insurance adjuster responsible for your claim makes a minor misadjustment in valuation for the payout for your car, and you receive a check for 100,000 euros. What, in your estimation, would you buy for that sum, assuming you could buy any number of cars? Well, thank you, Midnight Dory. There is another option. I have a very special set of skills, and if this person is you, I know what city you live in, so I will track you down, and Jolene is unique. I will find you, and I will bring you to justice. But if in this theoretical situation, if the insurance company didn't then ring me up and went, can we have all our money back because we misadjusted? If none of that happened, and I got to keep all 100,000 euros, and I could spend it on any number of cars, what would I do? 100,000 euros. I'd probably build another Jolene. I would probably buy another 6364 ENAC 2CV, or an AMI6 Estate as my runabout daily driver, chuck stuff in it kind of car. So that's what, 14 grand now, all in. So that leaves me with 86,000. Then I'd buy a Land Rover Series 2A, and that's probably another 20 grand. I'm going to lose track of my maths here. I'd buy a Rolls Royce 2025 in black, with French bodywork, French coachwork. They're about 25 grand, so I can get one more car out of it, and the last one would probably be a classic Lotus. Yeah, I'm not a big believer in telling you all what cars I want to buy, because if I tell everyone on the internet all the cars that I want to buy, then you guys will all go out and buy those cars, and the price of them will go up, and I can't afford them anymore. But yes, that is a list of cars that I would actually buy, that I really, really love. So I hope that answers your question satisfactorily, Midnight Dory / Midnight Drifter on Twitter. Next question. Min Driven Car Club says, hello Oliver, hello William, hello Oliver, my question, what is your opinion on the classic Mini? Okay, I'm going to cut this question into two parts. And what is your opinion on the BMW ones, or Binny as I call them? Okay, the classic Alicigonis Mini. Alicigonis was a complete genius. The classic Mini is a superb car. It has a certain faults, like the fact that because it has small wheels and it's only a 4-speed gearbox, when you're on a motorway you have to rev the nuts off it. The engine oil is shared by the gearbox oil, which is something that exists also on some Lamborghinis and like a Miura, and it also exists on certain Peugeots, like a 204. Peugeot also has the engine oil and the gearbox oil as one. That's not optimal. But I really like original Minis. Original Minis are superb. They are full of character. They do rust, as you know, because I know you've got a rusty one that you're working very hard on doing up, and I've suggested you turn it into a rally car. But I like them a lot. I would have one. I know that Miriam is a big fan of them as well. And yeah, I like Minis a lot. My mum used to have a Mini Cooper Sports Pack, one of the last ones ever made. My granddad had a Mini Van. And yeah, a lot of Minis in my family. I really, really like them. And the A-Series engine is one of the greatest engines ever made. Fact. So yeah, superb car. Superb engine. I like them a lot. I would own a Mini myself. BMW Minis. So Minis after 2000. I like the first of the BMW Minis. The John Cooper Works supercharged ones were really, really cool. They make really cool, whiny supercharger noises. They were really good to drive. They were a really good size. Even though they were bigger than the original Mini, they were still kind of reasonably small. They're about the same size as Jolene. But that means they've got a bigger boot and you can put more stuff in them. And the new Mini is just terrible, isn't it? It's huge. I mean, it's the size of like an original RAV4, which is a small 4-wheel drive. It's a massive thing. It's awful. You know, one of the worst things that you can do when you design a car, in my humble opinion, is ask people what they want. Like, it was a terrible idea when Edsel did it. Edsel Ford. It's one of the biggest catastrophes in automotive history, was the Edsel. And every car company saw that complete like commercial disaster and thought, oh, we'll do that. And we'll use focus groups and we'll ask people what they want and use it to develop a car. And it's a terrible idea. Because if you ask a bunch of Mini owners to tell you what they want from their Mini, they will all say more space. And if you want more space, you shouldn't buy a Mini. You know, Henry Ford once said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Which Henry Ford had lots of faults, to put it mildly. But he was right in that instance. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the new Mini. Not great. And it's symptomatic of the lazy, unimaginative management that is driving this country on the rocks. Yeah. So, yeah, that's that. Next one. Otakist says, do you want to drive my Mini? If you were local, Otakist, I would, but you're in Holland, so I'm not driving to Holland to drive a Mini. Thank you, though. Very kind of you. Next question. Emmanuel Bertrand says, who is for you the best provider of 2CV parts? This is a very difficult question to answer, because I don't have a 2CV6. I don't know if you do have a 2CV6 or a wrinkle bonnet, or what you have, because that influences things wildly. There are certain companies that only cater for 2CV6s, which are the later cars from 1970 onwards. I was approached by someone who works for one of these companies the other day, and they asked me why I don't use their... Well, they asked me if I use their parts, and when I said no, they said, well, why? And I said, well, you don't make parts for my car. They only make parts for 2CV6s. And this is where a lot of the confusion comes from. The best makers of Citroen parts in history are Citroen. Original old stock parts that come in a box wrapped in brown paper with a Citroen stamp on and that have never been fitted to a car. You know, original old stock parts are the best, but they're also really expensive and they're also not always available. If you can afford to kind of wait and go to something like the 2CV National or an Auto Jumble or something like that and be lucky enough to find someone that sells these types of parts, then that's fantastic. For everyone else, you've got to shop around. I find for my car, there is no one correct answer. There is one company that will sell this part that I need and another company that will sell that part that I need, and it can be quite frustrating. One of the best companies I found is pt3 or de Franzone. It's the same company. It's called de Franzone in Germany and it's called pt3 in France. And I like them because they have a quality index on their videos. On their website. So they will say, like, we make this part because people need it, but it's not very good quality. And they're upfront about that. Whereas if they make a part themselves and it's really high quality, they will say, you know, this is the highest quality. We made it because we weren't happy with the quality that other people were making. ECAS also do a similar thing where they say, you know, we sell this part because people want it, but we strongly suggest that you buy this other part that's better quality. So yeah, there's a bunch of companies out there that are really good and have really trustworthy people that work for them and are super helpful. I had this same conversation with my friend Mr. Honda, who lives in Japan and has a 63 Light Jolene. And he asked me the same thing because his car is completely stock and super clean and lovely. And he's like, I only want to use original Citroen parts. And I'm like, I really don't know a lot of places where you can get those. So yeah, there are a bunch of companies out there though that rebuild parts and stuff like that, but you've just got to look for them. You've really got to spend the time and Google stuff, and clubs are a really great way to find kind of tiny niche companies. You know, some guy who has a day job and as his second job rebuilds starter motors in his garage. There's a bunch of people out there like that, and the world's better because of it. But it's a very difficult question, and if you have a 2CV6, it's a very easy question to answer. If you have a 60s car, if you have a 50s car, it's a much more difficult question to answer. And I'm hoping that in the coming years, months, whatever, there will be a company that does pop up that finds its legs by catering for the 60s cars and for the 50s cars. Because there's a lot of us out there that need these parts. There are some companies out there that are now making parts that are superior than original quality, which is nice, because even though 2CVs are awesome, they aren't perfect. Okay, next one. Craig P. This is the final question. Craig P says, love your house, thank you. Any plans any plans for when babies arrive? I haven't ordered any babies, so I'm not quite sure what you mean. No. Right, babies, children. This is a bit close to the bone, to be honest, because I'm 30 in like 3 weeks' time. That's scary. 3 weeks, 4 weeks' time. Ugh. Basically, if you ever watch Grand Designs is a British program where people build their own homes. And as someone who is building my own home, I've watched a few episodes of Grand Designs, pretty much watched them all. And there's two things that everybody does wrong on Grand Designs. First one is not listening to Kevin, because Kevin MacLeod is an absolute genius and he really knows what he's doing, and he's not just a presenter, he's a proper architect, and if that man speaks, you should listen. The second thing is everybody has a baby, and the reason why they have a baby is because they're working hard building a house and they don't have a telly. I'm not going to make that same mistake. Because I can't plaster walls with a screaming infant in one arm. It's just not. It's not a good idea. I I have a car that is a 56-year-old car. Next year will be a 57-year-old car that I'm trying to keep beautiful while I use it every day. I'm making videos. I've got a growing YouTube channel. I have a fantastic community behind me. And I'm trying to build a house at the same time. And a baby would be too much at the minute. That doesn't mean I don't want children. I do want children one day. But at the minute, I have far too many plates spinning. So I don't know. It's something I would like one day, but just let me concrete my floor first. I've been engaged for about 7 years. We're not married. Like, because there's always been other stuff that we need. You know, the money has always had to go somewhere else, like buying a car or building a house. And so getting married has always seemed like this unnecessary thing. Although we do need tea towels, so getting married would be handy, possibly. But I don't know. It's something I want for the future. But there we go. I hope that's a satisfactory answer for your question. I don't know. So on that note, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you're watching this video on Facebook, thank you for watching this video on Facebook. But if you'd like to subscribe to this YouTube channel, it helps me massively if people watch and subscribe to these videos on YouTube, not on Facebook, because Facebook doesn't care and YouTube does, and so YouTube will actually help me progress and get these videos recommended to the people who really want to watch them, because I truly believe that looking at the growth of this channel over the last year, you know, I started in February, I kind of started fresh in February making videos again, and the channel has grown literally like 700%. It's crazy. I started off with 100 subscribers and now I have 750 subscribers. It's amazing. So I truly believe that there are more people possibly out there who want to watch these videos, and by watching these videos on YouTube and by subscribing on YouTube and clicking like on YouTube, you can help those people find these videos. You can also help those people find these videos by recommending them yourself. You can say, "Oi, mate, do you like you like 2CVs and mental blonde people that live in France? You might like this YouTube channel." So if you do that, and if you recommend these videos to your friends, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next video. Happy holidays. Something really cool planned for next week, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Bye.